When you think of a major breakthrough or glitch in a game, the process behind it sometimes takes months and maybe even years. But what if I told you that over the course of a month, Super Mario All-Stars has been completely broken? Today, let's dive into how a few people broke one cartridge featuring 5 Mario games. Hey you, yes you. You're watching a video about speedrunning, so you probably enjoy things being as optimal as possible. And lucky for you, today's video is sponsored by Extra Wallets. For years now, I've been using really fat wallets where I constantly struggle to get my card out, and on top of that, I've lost it many times. That is now a thing of the past with these bad boys. With ultra slim designs and easy card mechanisms, you'll be optimizing your next speedrun at the grocery store. There's plenty of features to go around with compatible location trackers, built-in RFID protection, and the coolest way to access your cards. Yeah, try getting that out of your typical clunky wallet. If you go to shop.extra.com/Storster, which will also be in the description, you get up to a 15% discount on these sleek and modern products thanks to Extra Wallet. On January 6, 2022, Mally posted a video on Twitter demonstrating arbitrary code execution, or ACE, inside of Super Mario All-Stars, specifically inside of Mario 3. This video demonstrates how putting glitched items in the inventory slot can let you run into some pretty interesting payloads, such as a debug mode here that allows you to freely move around and switch power-ups. So how are these items put here in the first place? Well, since this is done on the Super Mario All-Stars plus Super Mario World cartridge, you have access to the most broken retro Mario game of them all, Super Mario World. If you set up arbitrary code in Super Mario World, you can store said arbitrary code in Mario 3's save data. This allows you to swap between different games while maintaining this code. The future potential usage of this was huge. Both Mally and MrCheeze had been talking for a bit and instantly dove further into this discovery. MrCheeze is quite a notable researcher among the speedrun community, and over the past handful of years has broken games with Ace and way more titles than you could ever imagine, including Super Mario World. Messing with different item values, Mally came across item value 0x55, which when obtained, reached the rest of your items in your inventory as code. This detail was key, and not horribly long after, MrCheeze relayed these discoveries onto SethBling, who has notably been breaking SMW over and over again, such as being the first person to beat the game without seeing Bowser on console, as well as programming an entire game of Flappy Bird in an impressive amount of time. After Seth ended one of his live streams, Cheese made a group chat between him, Seth, and Mally, and quickly went to work on potential route ideas. MrCheeze located a place inside the game ROM that when jumped to, enables credits to appear when entering a level. This got the ball rolling pretty quickly, with Seth starting to work on a tool-assisted theory run. Around the same time, Seth ordered a Super Mario All-Stars plus World cartridge, and this is where things truly get off the ground. On January 31st, Seth booted up a stream titled SMB3 Any% on Super Mario All-Stars plus SMW, new route for platform-specific world record. Over the past week or so, Mally and Seth had finalized a route that would allow you to beat Super Mario Bros. 3 on All-Stars faster than ever before. While the All-Stars version of Any% has never been optimized at all due to runs being lumped with the original NES game, according to Speedrun.com, the fastest Super Nintendo run is an 11:18 by ZQB. who has held the record in the NES equivalent in both Credits Warp and the No Wrong Warp categories. What Seth was about to do would completely blow these any % No Wrong Warp times out of the water. Similar to what is done with Credits Warp in Super Mario World, a device called a multi-tap is used to plug in more than 2 controllers into one console. Holding down different inputs with different controllers can help write data needed for ace runs. Luckily, Seth wrote up an entire route document that specifies what needs to be held here. For this run, you need 2 multi-taps, both in 5-player mode. 2 controllers need to be plugged in to the first 2 slots of each multi-tap. Controller 1 on the first multi-tap will be used for direct gameplay, while the other 3 controllers will be holding down different button combinations for desired code values. Controller 2 on the first port will hold down left plus B plus Y plus select plus down. Controller 1 on port 2 will hold down A plus left plus start plus down plus right. And lastly, the second controller on port 2 will hold down Y plus select. To make this possible, runners will commonly use a combination of clips and clamps in order to hold down all these buttons simultaneously. Kinda like how you should like the video and subscribe simultaneously if you enjoy what you're watching. Anyways, now that we got that all out of the way, let's get to the juicy details of the actual run. Immediately, Seth is going to start a new game of Super Mario Bros. 3 and instantly saves and quits. Now we get to the majority of the run that takes place in Super Mario World. Starting off in Yoshi's Island 2, we don't have anything too crazy yet. All you need to do is beat the level after grabbing a Yoshi and become big with the midway checkpoint. Entering Yoshi's Island 3, Seth grabs a Fire Flower power-up and beats the level. The second Seth enters Yoshi's Island 3 again, things start to get really technical. Seth is about to perform the Powerup Incrementation glitch. To reach the final result, there's some things that I need to explain first. Depending on what power-up state Mario is in, he is assigned a different value. Small Mario is 0, Big Mario is 1, Kate Mario is 2, Fire Flower Mario is 3. And with the discovery of the Powerup Incrementation glitch, it's possible to reach a power-up value beyond 3. This was never intended for normal gameplay. IsoFreeze has a detailed video just on this alone, which I will link in the description, but I'll do my best to summarize it up. The first part of the equation to get there is the null sprite glitch. This occurs when the game thinks something is in Yoshi's mouth, but ultimately it's nothing at all. There are 2 important values here, the slot number of the sprite that Yoshi is holding, and how long Yoshi can keep something in his mouth before swallowing. Normally, this first value is set between 0 and B to keep track of the game's sprite slot, but with a null sprite, the value becomes FF. So how do you achieve this null sprite glitch? Well, in this case, you can spawn more than one Yoshi at once. Seth grabs a Koopa above the Yoshi block here, and uses it to duplicate said Yoshi block, and if you hit both blocks before a Yoshi fully spawns, you will spawn 2 Yoshis at once, with one becoming invisible. Seth will then get on the visible Yoshi, grab this red Koopa to the right, and despawn the Yoshi holding the Koopa in his mouth by ditching him into the pit nearby. The invisible Yoshi will then become visible, and you'll notice it has a sprite in its mouth. This right here is a null sprite. The last part of Powerup Incrementation involves these brown swinging platforms, which are programmed in quite an unusual way. When Mario is standing on one of these platforms, the game behaves quite weirdly, and in order to update Mario's position, the game creates a copy of Mario to draw onto the screen in order to keep him on the platform. You can notice this if I slow down the footage when jumping off one of these platforms. Due to the game having to make a copy, normal game routines such as calculating Mario and Yoshi's position need to be adjusted for the copy of Mario instead of just figuring it out for normal Mario himself. This also includes the routine for Yoshi spitting an item out. Due to different code stack values that I am too dumb to understand, I dropped computer science for a reason, There are 256 possible outcomes that can occur when spitting a null sprite on a brown platform, depending on your position. A majority of these outcomes either crash the game or do nothing. There is one specific outcome that is quite handy though, changing Mario's power-up status. Seth is going to do power-up incrementation twice, which will turn Mario's power-up status to 4 and then 5. This specific power-up number will be key later on, when you need to grab a 1-up, which will transfer Mario's power-up state to 15. Seth will then ditch Yoshi before leaving Yoshi's Island 3, and re-enter Yoshi's Island 2. Now from this point forward, if I explained every individual step, we'd be here for quite a long time, so the rest of this will be quite an overgeneralization. If you really want to get into the nitty-gritty, I'll link the document down below. Similar to any credits warp run you'll watch, Seth is going to do a handful of specific movements and positionings that ultimately is writing code to the game's memory. After 40 different really specific steps in Yoshi's Island 2, we get to the fun part. Using a second controller, Seth will hold down a specific button combination 4 different times, while collecting a mushroom from the reserve box. Each time the mushroom is collected, a byte is written into Super Mario Bros. 3. After writing these 4 bytes, Seth exits the level, saves and quits Super Mario World, and boots up Super Mario Bros. 3 with the save file created at the beginning of the run. Seth immediately opens up Mario's inventory, which now has 4 glitched items inside. Using Malley's discoveries about glitched items, the first glitched item is activated, which in turn will run the 3 other items as code. This code sets 2 flags inside Mario 3's game code. The first flag says, whenever you play a level, instantly clear the level as if you beat it. The second flag says, when you next beat a level, play the credits. This is how Seth instantly warps to the credits after activating the first item and entering a level. Throughout this 2.5 hour stream, Seth set multiple times using this route. Half an hour in, he set the first ever time with the route with a 7:28. Less than half an hour later, a 7:18, a 6:46 a half an hour after that, and finally 2.5 hours in, got a 6:40. Seth was now the king of Super Mario Bros. 3 using the All-Stars version. At this point you may have multiple questions. Is this an official record? Does this count? Is this really a Mario 3 speedrun? And my answer to all 3 of those is yes and no. The beauty of speedrunning is that there really isn't different boundaries on what you can and can't do. Sure, leaderboards may have specific rule sets, but that isn't stopping you from going out and doing your own thing. In terms of the official Super Mario Bros. 3 leaderboards though, no, this is not going to be on there. The leaderboards do actually combine NES and All-Stars, but All-Stars has never been faster than the original NES release, including Seth's Any% run. The NES Super Mario Bros. 3 has its own credits warp, with the record being 3 minutes and 3 seconds as of making this. Seth's All-Stars run would be at the near bottom of the board if it were to be accepted. You may think that after all that, I'd be done here, but what if I told you that this was the very beginning? Only 4 days later, on February 3rd, Seth came back with another All-Stars stream, but unbeknownst to others, he had a completely different run up his sleeve. MrCheeze and Seth came together again to research and route a way to break a second game on the All-Stars cartridge, and this time it was Super Mario Bros. 2. Similar to before, you need 2 multitaps with 2 controllers per port. In the same fashion as the previous run, Seth is going to boot up Mario 2, save and quit, and then trudge through the entire power-up incrementation sequence to Powerup 5, and do a setup for specific game RAM addresses. After setting everything up, Seth is able to start from World 7 and make his way to the final wart fight. Over the course of just under 2 hours, Seth got a personal best of 756. Unlike Mario 3, Mario 2 does have a separate All-Stars speedrun leaderboard, and Cool Kid currently has the record at a 727. This run takes advantage of using the save and quit function to access worlds out of order to get to World 7 quicker. While Seth wasn't fast enough to compete with Cool Kid here, 5 days later on February 8th, he would have a whole new route up his sleeve, and instead of having it start from the beginning of World 7, Seth instead could now load Super Mario Bros. 2 inside of Super Mario World and enter halfway through 7-2, and on top of that has a debug mode enabled that allows you to freely move around while being invincible. What's interesting to note is that instead of loading 7-2, 7-6 is actually loaded here instead, which is simply a glitched out version of 7-2. This is why when Seth first plays the game, he enters a door and dies. This will reload the level and put you halfway through the middle of it, which you will see is now normal 7-2. Normally in All-Stars, this shouldn't work. For example, in Mario 1 and the Lost Levels, there are special checks in place to make sure you can't load really out of place values. For some odd reason though, Mario 2 doesn't include said check, and has no problem loading 7-6. From this point forward, Seth gets through the level as fast as possible. He first has to temporarily disable his star power-up for the bird face fight, as killing it with a star will prevent you from using it as an exit to the next level sequence. Entering the Wart fight, all you do is hit Wart with one veggie, and that is enough to make him vulnerable to your star power, which in turn allows you to beat the game. Seth's first proper run with this route was a 743, but rapidly improved just like he did with Mario 3. Half an hour later, Seth beat Cool Kid's proper any percent time with a 720, then a 649, and finally a 626. Seth was now over a minute faster than the time using the game's intended functions. I know what I have said has already been a complete mouthful, and you probably want me to shut up by now, but only 2 days after this, Seth had a third route for this Mario 2 Mario World combo run. This route simplified a lot of things, and probably the biggest difference to note is that this new route only needs one controller. Multitaps are not required anymore. Seth still does the same power-up incrementation shenanigans in Yoshi's Island 3, but afterwards the route gets a bit different. And since even the simple concept of programming makes me cry nowadays, I will quickly let Seth explain this.
You're going to see me basically manipulate the position of one of those expanding and contracting platform tiles so that it's at a very specific spot on screen. Over there on the left you see that platform, and when it's fully expanded and Mario's standing in this spot, and the screen scroll all the way right, I despawn that at a very specific X coordinate. When I collect the one up here in a second, well, it'll jump to the memory responsible for drawing that tile, which consists of 4 values: an X coordinate, a Y coordinate, a sprite ID, which says like where in the sprite sheet it should pull the graphics from, and then some properties. These are things like should it be flipped horizontally or vertically, or...
Thanks, Seth. Anyways, you'll notice in this new route that Seth starts at the beginning of 7-1, unlike the previous route that started mid-7-2. While Seth does have to play more of Mario 2, if you compare the two runs, you'll notice that Seth wraps up his code execution a solid minute and a half faster with the new route. Even with having to briefly glide through 7-1, Seth still gains a solid minute entering the Wart fight. Seth first shattered this record with a 537 and ultimately got it down all the way to a 525. Seth now kinda beat Mario 2 on All-Stars 2 minutes faster than anyone else. If you thought Seth and company had already shattered this game beyond belief already, just listen quickly to what Seth said at the end of his 525 personal best video.
And the cool thing is this will work exactly, this route will work for the Lost Levels as well. I haven't done any runs of that yet, but probably coming soon. Also, we've been working on a route for all 5 games, which uses arbitrary code execution in Super Mario World to actually corrupt the save file Super Mario Bros. 3, and then you run arbitrary.
Since Super Mario All-Stars has 4 different games, or 5 if you include the world release, for quite a long time, people have been doing runs of running every single game on the cartridge as fast as possible, back to back. These categories generally get dubbed as all 4 or all 5 depending on the cartridge you are going with. People have done any percent, warpless, and 100% variants of this run, with runs going back as early as the mid-2000s. With the introduction of credits warp in Super Mario World in the mid-2010s, quite an obvious question came up with the any% all 5 speedrun. Should this be allowed? Eventually the rules were officially updated to note that for Super Mario World, the category ran must be 11 exit, which is the standard any% no wrong warp category. With the 2 runs we have already talked about, you may see where this is going. What if instead of completely breaking just 1 or 2 games on the cartridge, you broke every single one? Just a week after Seth's last Mario 2 run, on February 17th, he returned with yet another stream with a new route to beat every game in All-Stars plus Super Mario World in a time frame never imagined before. The beginning of this run looks quite similar to all the others so far, with starting with a fresh Mario 3 save file, doing Powerup incrementation, and writing bytes to code while collecting mushrooms. This setup has a lot more going on with it, with Seth ultimately writing 74 bytes here with the mushrooms. Fortunately, a decent chunk of these bytes, 41 of them to be exact, are just zeros. Seth at this point has now corrupted Mario 3's save file, which will allow him to beat the rest of the games very quickly after he does a credits warp in Super Mario World. Now we get to booting up Mario 3. Depending on what buttons you press between 2 controllers, it'll pick which game and level to load. On top of this, a debug mode was enabled that can be toggled throughout every game. This enables invincibility and a no-clip mode that lets you move anywhere. Due to the route being very new, Seth's first run was not the prettiest. When trying to load Mario 1, he ran into a bug that can occur, which loaded the lost levels instead, and he got a bit lost? I'm sorry, I had to make that joke. This cost quite a hefty bit of time, but he was still able to debug his way through every game. In Mario 1 and the lost levels, you enter 8-4. And in Mario 2, you load the glitch 7-6 level from the other route, which puts you in the middle of 7-2. To top it off, Seth ends with the credits warp in Mario 3 that we've already touched upon earlier. While you can do the games in any order for this run, Seth preferred to end on 3 due to it having a more fleshed out credit sequence. On top of this, throughout the entire run, the game uses the game sound from Super Mario Bros. 3, which leads to some pretty interesting audio during the run. Ending on Mario 3 is nice due to the credits playing and sounding just like normal. Seth ultimately got a 1928, which completely smashed the normal all 5 games any% time of 45:18. Yes, Seth destroyed the record by over 25 minutes. Kind of. We'll get back to that, but before we do, just a day later, Seth came back and threw a lot more attempts in, and with being more comfortable with the route, and entering the correct games this time, Seth shattered this time by 6 minutes with a 13:27. With this run now being a thing, the definition of any% for All-Stars became a bit of a question. If we're really going down to true any%, this most definitely should count. At the same time though, this really shouldn't obsolete any standard any% runs done in the past. If you go to the Super Mario All-Stars leaderboard now, there is a new separate category called any% Ace. As of making this, Seth is the only runner, but maybe you'll want to be the second. At this rate, Seth was having quite a bit of fun ripping apart All-Stars in any way possible. So to end off all the new runs that came out of these discoveries, let me introduce you to the anti-piracy screen speedrun. To combat piracy in the 90s that was spawning with the likes of cartridge copiers, Nintendo programmed a check inside the game, and if it detected the copy of the game wasn't legit, it would display a slightly scary warning screen. This wasn't the only game from the time to do this. The Donkey Kong Country games had the scariest of the bunch in my opinion. Just take a look. In all versions of Super Mario All-Stars, the game performs a check to see how much save RAM, or SRAM, is present. It writes a value in one location, and then compares it with the value at another. If the values match, the game assumes it's a legit copy. If not, the game throws up this warning message. The ace for this run is quite simple. All Seth is doing is jumping to a certain spot in the ROM of the game that triggers the anti-piracy code. Seth was able to do this in 3 minutes and 28 seconds. While this run has no purpose in the slightest and probably will never appear on any leaderboard, it's still fun to see how far this game's code can be stretched. So what's the future in all this? Well, like I said before, All 5 with Ace has become an official Speedrun.com category. And now Super Mario Bros. 2 has its own All-Stars Any% plus SMW leaderboard. On top of that, the same route that was used for Mario 2 Any% can be used for the Lost levels as well. By loading either 8.4 or D4, the estimate of this run is around the 6-minute mark, which will be roughly 2 minutes faster than any current Lost levels speedrun. No one has done that yet, but maybe in the future that will change. Seth is still the only one to run any of these categories, but maybe one of you at home will want to change that. I'll be linking the documents for the Mario 3, Mario 2, and all 5 run routes down below. All of these documents by Seth go into detail step by step that makes it pretty easy to follow if you're serious about running any of these. Seth has also stated that he is more than happy to answer any more questions that you may have. I feel like at this point in speedrunning, we are way past the debate of the legitimacy of ace or credits warp runs. Just let people run what they want. There's no limit to categories, you don't even need a leaderboard to run something. And at the end of the day, it's really fun to see how far a game can be broken, and seeing somebody get to the credits of 5 Mario games in 13 minutes is pretty impressive in my books, and I think most of you would say the same. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks always to my channel supporters and viewers, and I especially want to say thank you so much Mally, MrCheeze, and SethBling for helping me on this. SethBling, like that, honestly, just being able to talk to him and collaborate with him on this video was awesome. If you don't know, SethBling is the person that actually got me into speedrunning in the first place. I used to be really into Minecraft back in like 2013, 2014. I used to watch him like crazy. I mean, I still watch him now, but you know what I mean. I used to watch all his stuff from back then. And when he started running Mario World, that got me interested in old Mario games, and then I saw the speedrunning side of things, and without him, I don't think I would be exactly where I am today. So thank you so much, Seth. Shoutouts to you. And I also want to say it's awesome. Thank you so much, Extra, for sponsoring this video. Things are going really well right now. I hope March can be a really good month. February was awesome. Let's keep rocking on. Thank you so much, and stay safe.